Alright everyone, it's a sad day as Article 13 has taken the next step towards being law within the European Union, so it's time to weigh in on that. It's also time to begin pushing back. If people get complacent, if they're like, yeah, well, they get black-pilled and they're like, well, it's already passed. There's nothing we can do about it. It's going to become law. Well, then, yeah, it will, because you're being such a pessimist that you're basically bending over to take it in the ass from the European Union. I choose not to do so. I think all sane people choose not to do so. It can be hard for U.S. creators, who we're going to be severely negatively impacted if this goes through and is actually recognized and interpreted in a more broad sense. It can be difficult for us because in many cases we're blocked in parts of the EU. I'm blocked. My channel is not available in Germany, France, sometimes Poland and Italy, at times occasionally certain material in the UK now. Among others, I think the Czech Republic sometimes. So yeah, it can be a little bit harder to reach an audience in parts of the European disunion as it is today. Some of that, by the way, that censorship, dates back to like almost 10 years. I don't even know what I did to piss these people off. I wasn't even a political YouTuber at the time. I was too busy talking about Satanism or fucking creepy stories or something. I was too busy talking about music at the time, so I have no idea what I did to piss off the Germans. I have no idea how I pissed off the French government or anything. At the time, it was like Hollande or something in charge. In fact, I don't even think Hollande was in there yet. I think it was the idiot that came before him. But yeah, there are several things that we can do. First and foremost, we need to keep up the pressure to not actually pass. What happened is that a lot of the amendments were rejected, some of them were adopted, but now they've got to put it back before the EU. And what happens is two commissions have to agree upon the actual amendments to add and the actual articles that it'll contain. They have to hash it out all over again. Thankfully, this buys us a lot of time. What do we know about the European Union? The European Union is on the skids because it's being strangulated by its own bureaucratic legalism, by all the committees and red tape and bargaining and back and forth. It's like the difference between the House and Senate on steroids. It's like if we had a tricameral legislature here in the U.S. and you had to get 3 different groups to agree, and you had to do it 3 or 4 different times before something could be passed, and then you had 5 or 6 executives with veto powers. That's basically how the EU operates. Despite this, they tend to overwhelmingly agree on the shittiest legislation, which is why Article 13 in its current amended form went through with flying colors to the next step. Step 1, keep up the pressure to try to keep... people need to be made aware of just what Article 13 means. Now, a lot of people already are. It gives me hope that a lot of the people that are fighting most vocally against it are from the youth. And I mean younger than me. I mean like, teens and 20s. It gives me hope because obviously there's at least one little spark of free speech appreciation left in the next generation. It hasn't been beaten out of them. That's a good thing. Number 2, rebuff all the propaganda that you're seeing from the so-called musical industry, which no longer makes competent music. We got sellouts like Paul McCartney joining up with idiots from the new generation of so-called music to push the same stupid shit because they want to make more money. They're trying to play the pity card. Oh, I'll only make $10 million this year because people keep playing my song without playing me. Oh my God. Some stupid cartoonist, some major syndicated cartoons. Oh, Jim Davis will go before them. Even though he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, he's actually fantastically wealthy, believe it or not. He'll go before him. Oh, Garfield minus Garfield fundamentally violates my work. Yeah, Garfield minus Garfield would be gone under Article 13. Most of your parody music would be gone. Virtually all YouTubers, unless they solely make their own content like I do, virtually all YouTubers would have to be banned off the site. It would lay waste to them. The next step, if it looks like it's going to pass anyway, I'll tell you what the US public can do. We need to put incredible amounts of pressure on Silicon Valley here because there's one last-ditch effort that could stop it, and I'll tell you exactly what our strategy should be. We pressure sites like Google and Facebook and Twitter and all these others, and many of them have already come out against this. It's like Silicon Valley, despite its own problem with what should be antitrust legislation, despite their own problem with their monopolistic approach here, that could be a really good thing with regards to this, and I'll tell you how. All you would need is Silicon Valley to stand together and say, okay, you can pass Article 13, we'll be bound by it, we're going to withdraw from servicing the EU nations. We will not allow, EU citizens will not be allowed to use Google. They won't be allowed to use Gmail. We're going to lock them out of their accounts. They won't be able to get on YouTube. They won't be having Facebook accounts. They will all be completely gone. They won't be using Twitter. They won't be able to access it. They won't be able to use PayPal. They won't be able to use Patreon. They won't be able to use eBay and Amazon. There will be no e-commerce available to you other than Alibaba. There will be no social media available to you other than that, spit-shine Chinese social media site that they have that's got like 100 million users, but it's all in Chinese, so, basically fuck. You won't be able to use any of these services. Good luck. And then see what the EU citizenry will do. They will riot in the streets when they realize that Article 13 means no Facebook, no Twitter, no Instagram, no Snapchat, no anything really. They can't buy anything. They can't post their egotistical shitty pictures of them in front of the Louvre or something like that. They can't post about their Roastbraten. They can't post anything. They can't make a video about how good migrants are or how there's a migrant crisis. They won't be able to weigh in with their political opinion. They'll be severed from all their friends in the U.S. You know what'll happen? They'll riot in the streets and Article 13 won't pass. But it would take an incredible amount of worldwide effort to get the U.S. tech firms to do so. They have the ability. Look, the fact that a few dozen U.S. tech firms form a de facto trust and control virtually all internet traffic is a big problem when it comes to them censoring U.S. citizens, especially by violating the Constitution in so doing. Because the goods and services taxpayer funded from the government are supplied on these sites. Government services and bureaus, they have Twitter pages, they have YouTube accounts, they have Facebook groups. Equal protection under the law. All U.S. citizens have an inalienable right to access those services because they've been given a platform by those groups. If a private entity is supplying a government service, for that purpose, it no longer is a private entity. It is constitutionally bound to allow people to access that government service. I have no doubt, by the way, that this will be successfully argued over the next few years in a court. I have no doubt. Jeff Sessions aside, saying maybe we need to look at antitrust legislation for these companies. Screw it, who cares? Let the judiciary handle it. It'll be much easier and probably faster, ironically enough. As far as the EU goes, though, if the EU is endangering the ability of U.S. creators to do basically buttfuck anything, 4chan would be gone, Reddit would be gone, Tumblr would be gone. You realize that virtually all internet sites would have to shut down, right? Only the very largest firms would be able to even operate and afford the software that would be necessary. There are two components to Article 13 that are especially worrying. One is an upload filter. Every single thing that is uploaded would have to be automatically filtered to see if it's a copyrighted or a derivative work of a copyrighted work. In other words, you're talking about filtering everything that goes to your site. Can you say bad connection speed? You realize how much slower things would have to be on all these sites to make sure that the site can compensate for the fact that everything has to be filtered? And by the way, can a small website afford that? No. Can BitChute afford that? No. Can Gab afford that? No. Can Minds afford it? No. Can your personal website afford it? If it has a commenting function or anything like that? No. Can your small upstart afford it? No. Google can afford it. Apple can afford it. Facebook and Twitter can afford it. Ironically enough, all those companies are against Article 13 too because they don't want to have to operate such a filter and end up lowering their profit margin significantly, because then it's not only just live moderation, they'll need more of that too. They'll also need 10 more algorithms. It's going to be a shit show. It would be crazy. And then number two, beyond the upload filter, is that they have to actually proactively, despite the fact that they're not European firms, they have to obey European law. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Our firms should be completely exempt, and they should act like it too. They should say, hey, if you think you can quickly replace YouTube, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple, Microsoft, everything, if you think you can replace 99% of all of the web services and app things that your entire citizenry actually use, go ahead, pass Article 13, because you're going to lose access to our services. The fact is that these companies, when they act together as a trust, primarily have been doing negative things lately. They've been deplatforming users, they've been abusing people for ideological reasons, they've been lying to Congress about doing so. You look at Amazon just kicked a bunch of Rush's books off. Now, I don't like his books, I'm not going to read them. They probably do. I believe at a cursory glance they do violate TOS, but it's like they've been down there for years. So Amazon's getting involved. You already have heavy-handed copyright control. The DMCA era of YouTube was terrible. We're talking 2010 to 2012. A lot of people lost accounts during that period of time because of the heavy-handed and overly broad application of copyright law. This will do that, only much, much worse. That's the problem. So the first step is we need to pressure Congress and the U.S. government at large to respond to this, to condemn the idea that the EU would meddle in the internet in such a manner. Number two, we need to pressure Silicon Valley to be more vocal, and we ourselves as creators need to be more vocal. Make it clear you don't support the idea. Make it clear that it affects people outside of the EU. Make it clear to people, explain it to them like they're kindergartners why it's a bad thing. Because a lot of them, unless they're a libertarian, they probably haven't deliberately looked it up at all. A libertarian, or they're in a content creator's inner circle. Those are the only two instances in which they probably know fully what Article 13 entails. It would destroy, fundamentally, the internet. Now, some content creators, by which I mean the non-independent, corporatized kind, think, well, it means that I get my fair, share of the money when people are spreading my shit around. Who fucking cares? Dude, you're already getting your fair share in terms of free advertising. But none of these people seem to go. Paul McCartney, yeah. When's the last time he even put out an album? Can you name it? I think, didn't he do something with the Firemen or something like 10 fucking years ago? What a fucking sellout. Corporate bastard. He used to do LSD and he was a Beatle and shit. He was cool. Now he's a sellout. He grew old enough to just do goofy love songs, and he's going to do them until the day he's in the grave. Along with his ex-wife's fake leg. Yeah. The EU censorship must be stopped at all costs. If it does end up passing, basically the internet will become destabilized. Eventually, people will start ignoring the law anyway, and or the EU will be pressured to rescind it because of that instability. But again, it's like with the censorship we see now from Silicon Valley itself, which is standing against Article 13. It's not so much that I sit here worrying about it being normalized, because over time it's pissing off more and more people. It's more in essence of how many people are going to be destroyed, how much more material is going to be lost, how much more stupidity is going to occur before people wise up and leave the moral panic soccer mom Jared Holt sort of shit behind. How much longer is it going to be that dishonest, opportunistic NGOs and opportunistic corporate media fronts and craptivists and the easily panicked, the easily offended, how much longer is it that they're going to hold sway before people break out of their fever dream and realize how stupid they are? It could be some time. Long-term optimism, short-term pessimism. The same would be true of Article 13, but we've got a chance to stop it before it even infects the internet at large. Why don't we do everything within our power to stop it beforehand? And the Silicon Valley firms themselves can stop it at any time by simply telling the EU, yeah, you go ahead and do what you want. We'll stop providing our services. We're not going to filter everything proactively. We don't have the means to do it. You're crazy if you think that we're going to engage in it. You have your little tiny European cottage industry firms try to compete with Google. Pretty soon everyone in your country will be using a VPN to connect to us anyway. That's the other thing as a proactive step. I encourage all of my fans within the European Union to get a VPN. To familiarize yourself with how to bypass filters and things like that, how to shield your online activity from scrutiny by the EU authorities. Because otherwise you're going to lose access to a lot of people if that ends up happening. And I hope it does. I hope Silicon Valley here says, okay, we're going to give you a taste of what Article 13 really means. And they say, okay, for the next week, all of our services are blocked in Europe. We're not going to let you use Facebook and YouTube and all of these others. No Apple, no Microsoft. By the way, if you have any paid services, sorry, but those have to be cut off as well. We're just preparing for, Article 13. Yeah, then you'd see very quickly any European will be against the concept of this onerous and burdensome legislation. That's about all. Peace out.